Joan's thumb hovered over the send button while the coffee shop roared around her, steam hissing, cups clinking, a line of strangers staring like she was holding up the whole world. Her stomach turned again, sharp and ugly, the kind of nausea that didn't care if you were on shift or broke or terrified. She swallowed hard, blinked away the sting in her eyes, and typed the words she had been holding inside her chest like a grenade. OMG, I'm pregnant. He ghosted me. What do I do? Her best friend was saved in her phone as Nia Redheart. That's who this was supposed to go to. Nia always answered. Nia always had a plan. Nia always made Joan feel less alone. Joan hit send. Immediately, her phone buzzed. Not a typing bubble. Not a delayed reply. A reply. Congratulations. Joan froze. Then another message arrived. Who is he? And why are you texting me, Joan? Joan's breath vanished. The world narrowed to a glowing rectangle in her palm. Her fingers shook as she typed back. Too fast, too panicked. Who is this? The answer came like a door closing. Chu Hwan. And you have the wrong number. Joan stared. The name meant nothing to her. Just a stranger. Just a mistake. Just a humiliating accident that made her cheeks burn hotter than the espresso machine behind her. She tried to delete the messages, like that would erase the shame off her skin. But then another buzz. Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight? Joan's throat tightened. Safe? Who asked that? What kind of stranger? Her phone buzzed again. And don't lie. People lie when they're scared. Joan's chest lifted and dropped too quickly. She looked around the coffee shop like the person texting her might be standing in line right now, watching her like she was a puzzle. She typed, stopped, deleted, retyped. I'm fine. Sorry. Wrong number. The reply took longer this time. You sent me a private emergency. That is not fine. Joan's eyes stung. Her vision blurred for a second, and she hated herself for how quickly the tears came. She was not a cry-in-public kind of woman. She was a keep-it-together kind of woman. A smile-while-breaking kind of woman. But her body had been betraying her for days, and her bank account had been betraying her for months, and the man who'd promised he would never leave her had already disappeared like she was nothing. She typed one last time, mostly to end it. I have work. Please stop. A pause. Understood. Then, like a final stamp on her fate. Take care of yourself, Joan. The coffee shop noise rushed back into her ears, but it didn't sound the same anymore. It sounded distant, like Joan was underwater, like the world had shifted an inch off its axis, and she was the only one who could feel it. She locked her phone and forced her face into a smile as the next customer stepped up. Hi, she said, voice bright on instinct. What can I get started for you? Inside, she was shaking, because one wrong number had just taken her secret and placed it in the hands of a stranger who typed like he had authority in his bones. And Joan had no idea that stranger was about to step into her life like a storm wearing a suit. 1 week earlier, Joan had believed her life was messy but manageable. She'd believed that if she kept working double shifts, if she kept stretching ramen into 3 meals, if she kept pretending her landlord's warnings didn't make her stomach drop, she could outlast the bad season. Then she'd taken a pregnancy test in the tiny bathroom of her studio apartment, the one with a broken window latch and a sink that always dripped. 2 lines. 2 lines that changed the shape of her future. She'd sat on the edge of the tub with her hoodie pulled tight around her waist, staring at those lines until they blurred. Her mind ran in circles. Not now. Not like this. Not with him. Liam had been charming in the way men were charming when they wanted something. He knew how to tilt his smile like he was safe. He knew how to touch her wrist like it meant something. He knew how to speak about someday like Joan was included in it. And Joan, who had spent most of her life being responsible, being the dependable daughter, being the strong one in a family that leaned on her, had let herself be soft. One night had turned into 2. 2 had turned into weekends. Weekends had turned into long conversations and borrowed hoodies and the kind of laughter that made her forget she was always tired. When she told him, she expected shock, maybe fear, maybe even a plan. She had texted him because she couldn't get the words out in person. Her voice wouldn't behave, and her hands wouldn't stop trembling. I'm pregnant. She watched the delivered label appear. Then read. And nothing. Minutes passed. Then her messages stopped sending. She tried calling. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She opened his profile. Blocked. Just like that. Joan had stared at her phone like it was lying to her. Then the nausea hit, and she ran to the sink and threw up, alone, over and over, until her throat burned and her knees shook. That was the first day she realized something. Being a good woman did not protect you from being treated like you didn't matter. The days after that were a blur of swallowing panic and smiling through customers and forcing herself to eat crackers because her body demanded it. She hid the pregnancy test in the back of her sock drawer like it was evidence. Eviction notices showed up twice. The first one she ignored. The second one she couldn't. The numbers didn't add up. Even with tips. Even with overtime. Even with skipping meals. Even with telling herself she could figure it out. Her manager started cutting shifts. Business was tight. Everyone was struggling. Joan nodded, said she understood, then went to the bathroom and pressed her forehead against the stall door until her breathing slowed. At night, she lay in bed with one hand on her stomach and wondered if her baby could feel fear. She promised herself the same thing, again and again. I will not fail you, even if I'm terrified, even if I'm alone. And then, when she accidentally texted the wrong number, she broke that promise for 1 second, because for 1 second, she admitted she didn't know what to do. The week after the wrong number incident, Joan did what she always did when life tried to crush her. She kept moving. She applied to every job she could find that didn't require a degree she didn't have. Administrative assistant roles, receptionist roles, executive assistant roles with salaries that looked like miracles. Most never replied. One did. Vance Innovations. The email was crisp, formal, too polished to belong in her life. Interview scheduled, Friday, 10 a.m. Joan read the company name 3 times. Vance Innovations was the kind of place people talked about like it was a myth, a cutting-edge tech firm with impossible security, rumored global contracts, and a CEO who never gave interviews. The salary range alone made her sit down. Her first thought was, I'm not qualified. Her second thought was, I don't have the luxury of pride. She borrowed a blazer from Nia, tucked her curls into a neat twist, and practiced saying, good morning, without her voice shaking. The morning of the interview, she threw up twice and told herself it was nerves. When she arrived at Vance Innovations, she understood immediately why people called it a myth. The lobby was marble and glass and quiet power. Security guards in dark suits. Cameras that didn't look like cameras. People moving with purpose, like mistakes weren't allowed inside. Joan clutched her folder of printed resumes like it was armor. A woman at reception scanned her ID, then smiled politely without warmth. Ms. Joan, she said. The CEO will see you now. Joan blinked. The CEO? Yes. Joan's stomach dropped. She expected HR. A hiring manager. Someone normal. Not the CEO. The receptionist led her to an elevator that required a key card and a thumbprint. The doors closed like a vault. They rode up in silence. The doors opened onto a floor that felt even quieter, like the air itself was expensive. A second assistant waited, nodding once, then gesturing toward a set of double doors. Go ahead, she said. He's expecting you. Joan stepped forward, every instinct screaming to turn around. She pushed the doors open. The office inside was vast, floor-to-ceiling windows, dark wood, steel accents. A city skyline spread out behind a massive desk like a throne room view. And behind the desk sat a man who made Joan's lungs forget their job. He looked up slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Sharp suit. Black. Perfect fit. Hair dark and neatly styled, not a strand out of place. His face was controlled, handsome in a way that felt dangerous because it didn't ask for permission to be noticed. His eyes, dark, focused, hit Joan like a spotlight. She knew those eyes. Not from memory. From the weight in those messages. Congratulations. Why are you texting me, Joan? Joan's hand tightened around her folder. Her voice came out as a whisper. You? His expression didn't change. Not even a flicker. Good morning, he said. His voice was low, precise. Ms. Joan. Joan stood there like someone had paused her life mid-breath. She swallowed. You're Chu Hwan. He watched her carefully. Yes. Joan's cheeks went hot. I texted you by mistake. I'm aware. That was private. I'm also aware. Joan's heart beat so hard it made her dizzy. Why did you reply? He leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. Sit. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't rude. It was just final. Joan walked to the chair across from his desk and sat, trying to keep her posture straight while her insides rattled. Chu Hwan opened a file on his desk. Joan's name was on the tab. You have 3 years of customer-facing experience, he said. You've held 2 jobs at once for most of that time. You have no criminal record. You have consistent rent payments until recently. Joan's head snapped up. How do you know about my rent? His gaze stayed steady. This role requires trust. That doesn't answer my question. I prefer to understand the variables, he said calmly, before I make decisions that affect my company. Joan's hands clenched in her lap. So you're grilling me because I accidentally texted you? Because you demonstrated something, he said. Under pressure, you reached out. Joan almost laughed, but it came out as a shaky exhale. I reached out to my friend. Not you. Yet you reached out, he repeated, as if the distinction didn't matter. He flipped a page. You're interviewing for an executive assistant position, he said. The work is demanding. The schedule can be unforgiving. There are unexpected challenges. Joan's throat tightened. He lifted his eyes back to her face. Can you handle unexpected challenges, Miss Joan? The question landed like a trap. Joan forced herself to breathe. Yes. Personal commitments. Joan's pulse jumped. I don't see how that's relevant. Because this role requires discretion, he said. And stability. Joan's mouth went dry. He knew. He knew. And he was saying it without saying it. Her mind screamed. He's going to expose you. He's going to judge you. He's going to use this. She sat up straighter, drawing strength from pure survival. I can do the job, she said. If that's what you want to know. A pause. Then Chu Hwan's mouth curved, not into a smile, but into something that looked like decision. You start Monday, he said. Joan blinked. What? You're hired. Joan's brain scrambled. You barely asked me anything about my skills. I already know your skills, he said. What I needed to know is whether you would fold under pressure. Joan stared at him, suspicious and stunned. And his gaze didn't soften, but something in it steadied. You didn't fold, he said. Joan stood slowly, clutching her folder like she might need it to shield herself from whatever this was. Thank you, she managed. As she turned to leave, Chu Hwan spoke again. Ms. Joan. She froze, hand on the door. He said it quietly, like he was the only person in the world who could hear himself. Eat something before you faint. Joan's blood ran cold. She walked out on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. And as the elevator doors closed, she realized something terrifying. This man wasn't just powerful. He was paying attention. By Monday, Joan convinced herself she'd imagined the intensity. She told herself she was being paranoid because she was pregnant and stressed and broke and had too much pride to accept help. Then she started the job, and the weirdness began immediately. Her desk was placed outside Chu Hwan's office, close enough that she could feel his presence even when the door was shut. The office floor was controlled and quiet, like every person there had learned to be invisible. Joan tried to match that energy. She dressed professionally. She showed up early. She worked like her baby depended on it, because it did. By noon, the nausea returned, thick and relentless. She kept a bottle of water and mints in her drawer. She swallowed the urge to run to the bathroom and instead forced herself to breathe through it. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Joan stared at it, heat rushing into her face. A message appeared. Are you feeling nauseous today? Joan's fingers went numb. She typed back quickly. Please don't text me like this. I'm at work. The reply came almost immediately. I know where you are. Joan's stomach dropped, so hard she almost gagged. She stood, heart racing, and walked toward Chu Hwan's office like she was marching to an execution. She didn't knock. She pushed the door open, because fear makes you brave in ugly ways. Chu Hwan looked up from his laptop, unbothered. Ms. Joan, he said. Joan held up her phone. Why are you texting me? He glanced at the screen once. Because you're unwell. That's not your business. It became my business when you sent me the message, he said. That was a mistake. And yet, he said calmly, you are still in a situation that requires attention. Joan's voice sharpened. Are you blackmailing me? Chu Hwan's eyebrows lifted slightly, like she had asked something almost amusing. No. Then what is this? He stood, walking around the desk with measured control. He stopped a respectful distance away, like he understood boundaries even if he was ignoring them. You are pregnant, he said simply. You are alone. The father is unreliable. You are working too hard. Your body is reacting. Joan's throat tightened. You don't know me. His gaze held hers, unwavering. I know enough. Joan's hands shook. Why do you care? A silence stretched. Chu Hwan's jaw tightened slightly. just enough to show something beneath the cold professionalism. Because, he said, voice lower, I do not like problems I can prevent. Joan's eyes narrowed. So I'm a problem. You are a situation, he corrected. That should have annoyed her, but it didn't. Not fully, because behind his words, there was something that sounded like restraint. Joan swallowed. I can handle my own life. Chu Hwan didn't argue. He just reached into a drawer and pulled out a small card. Go to this clinic, he said, placing it on the desk between them. They are discreet. No reporters. No paperwork issues. Joan stared at the card like it was a trap. I didn't ask you for that. I know, he said. Joan looked back up. Then why are you doing it? His eyes didn't soften, but his voice did, barely. Because you looked like you were about to disappear in that coffee shop, he said. And you still look like that now. Joan's chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. She hated that she felt seen. She hated that it made her want to cry again. She grabbed the card without committing to anything. Stop texting me about my symptoms. Chu Hwan nodded once. Understood. Joan turned to leave. Behind her, his voice followed, quiet but steady. There will be bland snacks in your mini fridge, he said. Eat them. Joan paused, hand on the doorknob. Mini fridge. She walked back to her desk and opened the small cabinet she hadn't noticed before. Inside was a brand new mini fridge. Stocked. Crackers. Ginger tea. Applesauce. Plain yogurt. Electrolyte drinks. Joan stared at it like it had appeared by magic. Her phone buzzed again. Do not skip lunch. Joan closed her eyes and exhaled through her nose, trying not to lose her mind. If you're still here reading, pause for 1 second, because this is exactly where everything shifts. If you want part 2 energy and you want more stories like this on Afro-Korea Stories, this is the perfect moment to hit like. It tells the algorithm you're locked in, and it tells me you want more of this tension. Joan told herself she would not be bought. She told herself she would not be controlled. She told herself Chu Hwan was doing this for himself, not for her, because men like that didn't just help out of kindness. So she kept her distance. She focused on the work, scheduling meetings, filtering calls, managing a calendar that looked like a battlefield. Chu Hwan was relentless, the kind of boss who didn't waste words. Meetings started on time. Deadlines were non-negotiable. People straightened when he walked by. But with Joan, there was a strange contradiction. He was cold in public, and quietly attentive in private. When her uniform skirt started to pull tighter around her waist, a new set of office-appropriate outfits appeared on her chair one morning. Still professional, still modest, but sized for her changing body. No note. No explanation. Just there. Joan marched into his office again, because apparently that was her new coping mechanism. You can't do that, she said, holding the clothes like evidence. Chu Hwan looked up. You needed them. I did not ask. You would not ask, he replied, as if he knew her pride personally. Joan's jaw tightened. You're crossing lines. Chu Hwan's gaze flickered briefly to her stomach, still barely visible, but present. Lines are the difference between safety and danger, he said. I am choosing safety. Joan's voice dropped. What danger? Chu Hwan stared at her for a moment too long. Then he said, too smoothly, sit down, Miss Joan. You have a call in 5 minutes. Joan didn't sit. She didn't move. Why do you talk like you're protecting me from something? She demanded. Chu Hwan's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, a hint of something darker surfaced. Because I am, he said. Joan's skin prickled. From what? A beat. Then Chu Hwan's expression went back to controlled. You are not ready for that conversation, he said. Joan's heart pounded. Don't decide what I'm ready for. Chu Hwan stood slowly, and the air shifted with him. Ms. Joan, he said, voice calm but edged. There are forces that notice weakness. Pregnancy makes you a target. Joan's stomach dropped. That makes no sense. In your world, maybe, he said. In mine, it makes perfect sense. Joan stared at him. In mine. The words lodged in her mind like a warning. Joan went back to her desk and tried to ignore the way her instincts screamed that she had walked into something far bigger than a tech company. That week, she started noticing things. Men in suits who didn't look like employees. Meetings with names that weren't on the official schedule. A private elevator that only Chu Hwan and 2 other men used. Security protocols that felt excessive for software development. And once, late one evening, when Joan stayed behind to finish a report, she heard voices through the slightly open door to a conference room. Low. Foreign. Korean. She didn't understand much, but she understood tone. The tone sounded like threats wrapped in politeness. She backed away quietly and returned to her desk, heart hammering. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Do not stay late again. Joan stared at the message, then looked toward Chu Hwan's closed office door. Her hands went cold. How did he know? The company event arrived like a storm cloud. It was a high-profile gathering, investors, partners, media. Joan had been running logistics all week, surviving on crackers and stubbornness. She wore one of the new outfits, an elegant, modest dress with a blazer. She looked professional, polished, but she felt like a lie walking. The ballroom shimmered with luxury. Crystal lights, black tie energy, people who looked like money. Chu Hwan entered the room 10 minutes after Joan did, and the atmosphere shifted like someone had adjusted the temperature. People turned. People watched. People made space. He moved through the crowd with controlled power, greeting certain people with a nod that looked like permission. Joan tried not to look at him. It was hard. He looked unfairly good in a suit. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be obeyed. Joan focused on her tasks, making sure the schedule ran smoothly, ensuring the keynote speaker had what they needed, keeping staff in place. Then the nausea hit again, harder than usual. She stepped away toward a quieter hallway, pressing a hand to her stomach as she breathed through it. That's when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Joan. Her spine stiffened. She turned slowly. Liam stood there like a ghost that had learned how to smile again. He looked good, too good. Fresh haircut, expensive watch. That same charming face that had once made her feel chosen. Her stomach twisted with something that wasn't nausea. Liam, she said, voice flat. He stepped closer, eyes scanning her like he had a right. Wow, he said softly. You look different. Joan tightened her grip on her clutch. What are you doing here? Liam lifted his hands in mock surrender. I came to talk. I didn't know you worked here. Joan's laugh was sharp. You didn't know because you blocked me. Liam's smile faltered for half a second, then returned, smoother. I panicked, he said. I made a mistake. Joan's throat tightened. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. You disappeared. Liam stepped closer, lowering his voice. I was scared, but I've thought about you every day. Joan stared at him, shocked at his audacity. I don't believe you, she said. Liam's gaze dropped to her midsection. Joan's hand moved instinctively, protective. His eyes widened just slightly, like he'd confirmed something. So it's true, he breathed. You're pregnant. Joan's heart slammed. Don't. Liam took her arm, not hard, but tight enough. Joan flinched. Let go. Joan, listen, he insisted. We can fix this. I can take care of you. I can. Joan tried to pull away. Liam's grip tightened. Please, he hissed. Don't make a scene. Joan's pulse roared in her ears. She was about to open her mouth, to shout, to scream, to draw attention, when the hallway temperature dropped. A shadow fell over them. Joan looked up. Chu Hwan stood there, eyes fixed on Liam's hand gripping Joan's arm. His face was calm, but his calm looked like a blade. Is there a problem? Chu Hwan asked. Liam blinked, surprised. Who are you? Chu Hwan didn't answer the question. His gaze didn't move from Liam's hand. Joan felt her body shake, not from fear now, but from relief so sudden it almost made her weak. Liam scoffed. We're talking. This is private. Chu Hwan stepped closer, voice quiet. Remove your hand. Liam laughed like it was a joke. Or what? Chu Hwan's eyes lifted to Liam's face. Something in that gaze made Liam's smile falter. Chu Hwan spoke again, even calmer. Or you will learn what it feels like to lose control in a room full of witnesses. Joan's breath caught. Liam's grip loosened slightly. Chu Hwan's hand moved, slow, deliberate, gently taking Joan's arm and drawing her closer to him, placing himself between her and Liam like a wall. Joan's heart pounded against her ribs. Liam's eyes darted between them. What is this? Liam snapped. You her boss or something? Chu Hwan's voice was even. She is my employee. Liam sneered. So you're saving her? Cute. Joan tried to speak, but the nausea surged again, and her vision tilted. Chu Hwan noticed instantly. His arm slid around her waist, steadying her. Joan, he said quietly, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Clean, expensive, controlled. Breathe. Joan's legs wobbled. Liam's face twisted with anger. What's it to you, Vance? Liam spat, suddenly louder, drawing attention. You don't care about her, or her baby. The words hit the air like a bomb. The hallway went silent. People turned. Whispers sparked like fire. Joan's chest tightened so hard she thought she might pass out. Chu Hwan's grip tightened protectively, but his face stayed stone. Liam's voice rose, fueled by bitterness. Yeah, he said, pointing at Joan. Ask her. She's pregnant, and she's been hiding it. What kind of woman? Chu Hwan moved before Joan could think. He stepped into Liam's space, voice low enough that only Liam could hear, but cold enough that everyone could feel it. You will stop, Chu Hwan said. Liam laughed, nervous now. Or what? You gonna fire her? You gonna? Chu Hwan's smile appeared for the first time that night, and it was not kind. No, he said softly. I'm going to end you. Joan's breath caught. Liam's eyes widened. Something in Chu Hwan's tone made Liam understand this wasn't corporate intimidation. This was something else. Something older. Darker. Chu Hwan turned slightly, shielding Joan from the crowd. Get me my car, he said to an aide who appeared like magic at his side. The aide nodded and vanished. Chu Hwan lifted Joan easily, like her weight meant nothing, and carried her away from the hallway as murmurs erupted behind them. Joan's head rested against his shoulder, her pride screaming, her body grateful. As they moved, she heard Liam yelling behind them, but it sounded far away. You can't do this. She's mine. That's my baby. Chu Hwan didn't look back. He carried Joan through a private corridor, into a private elevator, and down into silence. The car ride felt unreal. The vehicle was sleek, black, quiet. The driver didn't speak. Chu Hwan sat beside Joan, his presence filling the space. He handed her a bottle of water without a word. Joan took it with trembling fingers. Her voice came out small. You heard him. Yes, Chu Hwan said. He told everyone. Yes. Joan swallowed. Shame and anger fought inside her. My life is not your problem. Chu Hwan's eyes turned to her. It became my problem when he touched you. Joan's breath caught. She tried to laugh, but it came out as a broken sound. Why? Chu Hwan didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the window, the city lights sliding past. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than before. Because men like him believe women exist for their convenience, he said. And I do not tolerate that. Joan stared at him. Since when do you care about women? His jaw tightened. I care about what is right. Joan's eyebrows lifted. You don't look like the right type. A corner of his mouth twitched. No, I don't. The car stopped at a building Joan had never seen before. Tall, modern, heavily guarded. The lobby smelled like money and security. Chu Hwan guided Joan inside, his hand at her lower back. Not possessive, but steady. They entered a private elevator. Joan's heart pounded. Where are we? My residence, Chu Hwan said. Joan froze. Absolutely not. Chu Hwan looked at her. You are not safe at your apartment. Joan's chest tightened. You don't know that. Chu Hwan's eyes hardened. I know enough. The elevator doors opened into a penthouse that looked like a magazine spread, sleek, minimal, expensive. Joan stood at the entrance like someone had dropped her into someone else's life. Chu Hwan removed his jacket, loosened his cufflinks, movements controlled. Joan's voice shook. Why are you doing this? Chu Hwan turned to her fully, and for the first time since she met him, he let a crack show. Not weakness, just honesty. Because I received your text, he said quietly, and I understood what it meant to be abandoned. Joan's throat tightened. You don't know anything about that. Chu Hwan's gaze held hers. I do, he said. More than you think. Joan's pride flared, defensive. So what? You're some kind of hero now. Chu Hwan's expression didn't soften. I am not a hero, he said. I am a man who solves problems. Joan exhaled sharply. I don't want to be your problem. Chu Hwan took a slow step closer, stopping at a respectful distance. You are not a problem, he said, voice lower. You are a responsibility that someone abandoned. Joan's eyes stung. She hated that she wanted to believe him. She hated that she felt safer in this penthouse with a stranger than she did in her own home. She lifted her chin. What do you want from me? Chu Hwan studied her face like he was reading something beneath her words. I want you alive, he said. Joan's breath caught. That's dramatic. Chu Hwan's jaw flexed. It is accurate. Joan stared at him, heart racing. What aren't you telling me? Chu Hwan's silence answered first. Then he spoke. Vance Innovations is not my only business, he said. And Liam should not have been able to walk into that event. Joan's skin went cold. What do you mean? Chu Hwan's eyes darkened. I mean someone is watching you now. Joan's stomach tightened with fear. Who? Chu Hwan's voice was calm. The kind of people who see a pregnant woman as leverage. Joan's mouth went dry. This is insane. Chu Hwan stepped closer, lowering his voice. No, he said. This is my world. Joan's heart hammered. Your world? What are you? Chu Hwan's gaze didn't waver. A man with enemies, he said. A man with obligations. A man with a name that opens doors and starts wars. Joan swallowed hard. Are you Mafia? The word felt ridiculous in her mouth. Chu Hwan didn't flinch. I do not use that word, he said. But yes. Joan's knees went weak. Her mind screamed to run. But her body remembered how he stepped in front of her, how his arm held her steady, how his voice cut through panic like a command to survive. Joan's voice trembled. Then why bring me into this? Chu Hwan's eyes softened just enough to hurt. I did not bring you, he said. You texted me. Joan's lips parted, stunned by the truth of it. He continued, quieter. And when you did, I could not ignore it. Joan's chest tightened. She looked away, staring at the city lights outside the window because she couldn't hold his gaze without feeling something she didn't have time for. Liam is the father, she said, voice bitter. And he doesn't want the baby. He just wants control. Chu Hwan's voice was cold. He will not get it. Joan turned back. How can you promise that? Chu Hwan stepped closer until she had to tilt her head up to look at him. Because, he said, I do not make promises I cannot enforce. Joan's breath caught. She felt the weight of those words. Not romantic, not sweet, but absolute. And that terrified her almost as much as it calmed her. She tried to steady herself. So what now? Chu Hwan looked at her stomach, then back at her face. His voice dropped, softer than it had any right to be. Now, he said, you stop surviving alone. Joan swallowed. I don't need a man. Chu Hwan's gaze held hers. I know. Joan's voice shook anyway. Then why are you offering? A pause. Then Chu Hwan said, quietly, like it cost him something. Because I hate unnecessary risks, he said. And you are taking too many. Joan's eyes stung. I'm not asking you to love me. Chu Hwan continued. I'm not asking you to trust me overnight. I am asking you to let me stand between you and the people who would hurt you. Joan's throat tightened. And what do you get out of it? Chu Hwan's expression was unreadable. For now, he said, control. Joan stared at him. Honest. Chu Hwan's eyes flickered. Always. Joan's hands trembled. And later, Chu Hwan's gaze dropped to her lips for half a second. So quick, she almost convinced herself she imagined it. Then returned to her eyes. Later, he said softly, we will see what we become. Joan's heart beat too hard. She whispered, you thought you hated kids. Chu Hwan's jaw tightened, and something like emotion flickered in his eyes. I hated weakness, he corrected. I hated chaos. I hated feeling responsible for what I could not control. Joan's voice cracked. And now, Chu Hwan's hand lifted slowly, stopping just short of her stomach, like he was asking permission without words. Now, he said, I see a life that deserves protection. Joan's breath shook. Chu Hwan's voice turned even quieter, and the words hit her like a vow. Let me be the father that child deserves, he said. Let me be your partner. Joan stared up at him, terrified by the offer, tempted by the safety in it, angry at the world for pushing her to this edge. Outside the window, the city glittered like it didn't care. Inside the penthouse, Joan realized something that made her chest ache. The wrong text hadn't found the wrong number. It had found the one man powerful enough to change her entire life. If you made it to the end, you're officially part of the Afro-Korea Stories family. Hit subscribe right now. We're pushing to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll drop part 2 the moment we hit the next milestone. Comment Team Chu Hwan if you think he's going to protect her for real, and tell me, should she trust him?